Hey everybody, I'm going to share a bit about my experience with the spiritual disciplines. And I would define spiritual disciplines as the practices and techniques that we might use in order to prepare ourselves um, through external means, but prepare ourselves internally in order to receive the gift of holiness and righteousness through God's grace. Most the disciplines that we do, the ones that Foster identifies, are things that we have to act on, but I think it's God that does the redeeming work through those things, and we really have to just, I think Foster says this, receive them from God as a gift. Um, so I've read Foster's book before, and he puts the disciplines into three categories: I think inward, outward, and corporate. And so the inward disciplines are ones I think that are basically entirely internally focused, and they thrive and function on an internal level. And then the outwards are ones that you start to engage others with, um, and they also kind of manifest in an outward sense in terms of what people will see that you're doing, or see how you're doing things, or how you are interacting with others. And the corporates are the ones that are specifically done in community. I think the corporate ones you can't engage in another sense; they have to be done in community. I don't. I'm I'm really working harder at being more disciplined in general. I'm not a very disciplined person in general. Uh, and the spiritual disciplines have really been reaching out to me in the past year and a half or so. Um, and there's ones that I find easier. There's ones that I find harder. Um, Surprisingly, things like I find fasting to be easier. I know, I know, I'm chubby, but if I choose to fast though, or I want to fast, it's something that comes easier to me. Whereas solitude's a lot harder for me. Some of the disciplines that require, you know, going outside of your comfort zone, I guess, as a raging extrovert, solitude's a difficult one for me. Then there's some that I'm aspiring more towards, like simplicity. Um, yeah, and of course, I think prayer is a key one that a lot of us are working on. Study comes easier for me, so there's some of them that just come easier, that are easier to engage in, but some are harder to engage in. So it just depends on how our wiring is. I think a lot of ways. I don't really think the church I grew up going to. Now I didn't become a Christian until I was 14, so I didn't really grow up in a church. But the church I went to, I don't think there never felt like there was an overt focus on the disciplines outside of prayer, which I think is a common one that we all run up against. And then we did like the 30-hour famine, so maybe some fasting in there were the only two spots that there were potentially some focus on the disciplines. But we really didn't do much else as far as that goes. I have taken a much more of a proactive posture in my current ministry to attempt to make the disciplines a part of what we do. We teach a class that's based on Richard Foster's book that I put together, and I'm familiar with that, and teaching the class, walking people through the disciplines. We make a little guide. I actually have an example because I have a file folder, but I make a little guide of the disciplines, and each one's on here, and kind of like some facts about it and some opportunities to how to do it. This is all from Richard Foster's book. So we try to emphasize them, and then I'm working on how do we practice them together. Like I said, some of the like prayer is an easy one. Fasting, you can call for times of fasting. Foster talks about that. But I'm trying to figure out ways to actually like inspire the congregation and create a space where it's like we're gonna practice this discipline together. Or we're gonna encourage this discipline by doing this thing. But that's going to be something that's going to be new. So yeah, that's kind of my overview of my exposure to spiritual disciplines. I read Richard Foster's book in undergrad, and then I read it again a couple years ago in preparation to create a course at church, and so this will be my third time through the book. So it'll be good to kind of refresh things as we go through it. So I've been exposed to them in a formal sense, but my practical exposure to them is probably less than I'd like. So I'd like to up my game in that respect. So looking forward to hearing from you all. And yeah, we'll see you soon.